All right, hello everybody. We're gonna just wrap up acceleration due to gravity. So recall that acceleration due to gravity is g m over r squared. And nowhere in this equation is there the mass of the object that's accelerating. So if we have two objects, you can say a hammer and a feather. And we were to drop them and we were to suck out all the air. So maybe we were doing this on the moon, maybe we just, I don't know, sucked up the atmosphere of Earth for some reason. We would find that they would both accelerate at 9.81 meters per second squared. But we know that the hammer has a much larger mass than the feather, right? And we observe that hammers would hit the ground faster than a feather would, but that's mostly because of air resistance. I mean, that's entirely because of air resistance. So if we take out the air, they're just going to fall from gravity. And we know that their acceleration due to gravity will be the same because their distance from the center of Earth is the same, right? This distance r is the same for both, and the mass of the Earth doesn't change. And we see that the mass of the actual object, so the mass of the hammer or the mass of the feather, just doesn't matter. It doesn't come into the equation. So one way to look at this is you can think about acceleration due to gravity really being about distance, kind of with respect to a certain object. So if this is our planet, everything along the surface, right, let's call that A, and everything that's, whatever distance is away. Right, these are different R's. So that could be R1, R2, right? Can have one out here. The acceleration due to gravity in these different kind of dotted line circles is going to be the same for all objects, right? So again, I could put my hammer out here and my feather, and it would just be like at the surface of the Earth. They would have the same acceleration due to gravity as each other. I mean, the acceleration due to gravity is going to be smaller now, right? Now that the radius is larger, this acceleration due to gravity is going to be smaller. But again, they're going to be the same for both objects. And I kind of think about it as these kind of distances, right? So you can have this distance A from the center of the object. You can have this distance B. You can have this distance C. And really, in these different regions, you're going to have the same acceleration due to gravity. The closer you are, the higher the acceleration due to gravity. The further away, the lower the acceleration due to gravity. And of course, if you change planets and you have a more massive planet, then your acceleration due to gravity is going to increase. And again, when we look at force, so remember force is going to be the mass times the acceleration due to gravity. So if we wanted to find the force on the hammer, we would have to put in the hammer's mass here and multiply it by the acceleration due to gravity. We find, well, the hammer has a higher mass than the feather, so it's going to have a higher force. There's going to be a stronger force of gravity on that hammer. And again, one way to think about this is that the acceleration due to gravity is fixed, right? No matter what, we're going to get that hammer to accelerate at this certain amount. If it's on the surface, it's 9.81 meters per second squared. And force is really just whatever force you need to get the hammer to accelerate at 9.81 meters per second squared, right? Because that's what this is really telling us. It's saying whatever it is, make sure it accelerates this amount. How do I get it to accelerate this amount? Well, I'm going to need this amount of force on it, right? So the higher the mass is, the higher the force I need to make it accelerate that much. If it's got a really small mass, I don't need a large force to make it accelerate. But the force is really kind of, one way to think about it is a means to an end, right? I've got to apply this force, and it's got to be large enough that I get the right acceleration due to gravity, given my distance away from this planet or this object. And this is the same as writing it out the long way. So gm1, m2